Welcome to this episode of Sunny Silver Linings. Sunny's guest today is Ammara Abedi, a strategy consultant and executive coach at Insperity. Ammara's focus is helping businesses create more diversity and inclusion within their organization so that employees can experience a culture of belongingness and psychological safety. And now, your host, the founder and CEO of IT by Design, Mr. Sunny Kela. Over to you, Sunny.
Ammara, thank you so much for joining me today as my guest. I truly appreciate your time.
Thank you. It's such an honor to be here.
Yeah, so today we have Ammara with us. She's a strategy consultant for Insperity for mid-market accounts. And she has been our partner, IT by Design, as you know. We have been Ammara using Insperity partnership for many years, and as a result of this partnership, it kind of helped us grow as a business and have that scaling up effectively as a result of this partnership. And you have been working with us from a few years, and I always love our conversations on leadership, on talent strategies. And I am super excited about having this conversation today, because when we were talking about this early on, a couple of months ago before Build It, and I'm like, this is something that I really want to share with the world. So thank you so much for joining me today.
I'm super excited to have that conversation too. It's one of the topics that I'm very passionate about. So thank you for inviting me.
And so let's start with, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, people that don't know Ammara. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I'm an organizational psychologist by trade. And in my current role as a strategy consultant for middle market consulting services at Insperity, I get to help the C-suite middle market clients usually to see what is the motivation, what is the mission, vision, values behind the work that they get to do, behind the foundation that they build for their organization. Or it could be a diversity, equity, and inclusion strategy that they want to include and implement in their business. It could be so many different things that you don't even think about that a business might need. Or
and can you share a little bit on diversity and inclusion? Like, when I talk to different people, their version of diversity and inclusion sometimes, is different. What does it mean to you?
I would say, so diverse, so just for a common understanding, a lot of times we use those terms so interchangeably that it's hard to differentiate. So when I see diversity, to me, that means that a certain group is being represented, whether it's minority from their gender, sexual orientation, religious, any kind of differences that they bring to the table. So that representation, that's more like a number that's referred to as diversity. When it comes to inclusion or equity is more like who has that access to be, if you're conducting a meeting, let's say, who all can enter the room, who has been invited. And then once that person has been invited, inclusion is, do they feel like they belong there? Do they feel like they have the right to speak their mind? Do they feel comfortable being who they are in that room? So that's kind of my perspective that I've noticed. And I know that there are different views on that topic.
Yeah. And so one thing sometimes I think about is, I write with my right hand, Ammara, and but I play my volleyball. I'm a big volleyball player, to tennis, and anything that I play is with the left hand. And the other day I was trying to buy my golf set, a new golf set, and even there, so sometimes I have to buy the left hand for left hand people. And from the door perspective as well, I'm like, no, this is not made for me. Like, I want to open that door with my left hand, but it's designed for the right hand people. And so do you think how far you can go with diversity and inclusion? So that was one thing that I was thinking about.
On that right hand, left hand, my brother is also left-handed, and that's his dominant hand. I remember throughout college, throughout high school, he would always complain because whenever they're test taking, he's writing with his left hand. And so he keeps bumping his hand into the person next to him, and they get bothered, especially in an exam taking setting. That can be something, and it's such a minor thing, but that's what it's about. It's about little things that show you that how much care, how much acknowledgement goes into this.
Yeah, and how different we all are as human beings. We're all unique, right? And understanding that strength of being different and embracing that and leveraging diversity, those complementary strengths, right? So just imagine in the volleyball game, someone leveraging my left-hand strength rather than expecting right-hand strength from me, right? So the team is normally, great teams are built keeping complementary strengths, that uniqueness, and where you bring all the unique strengths and create that trademark strength, trademark capability of your team. So let's get into our leadership conversation. And so my first question is, what are some common challenges that business owners and leaders for small tech organizations can experience when they look for leadership potential in their people?
I'm glad that you said common, because whatever one business is going to experience or face is going to be different for the other organization. But I can say the most common challenges that we usually see for small tech organizations are because of limited or constrained budget, they tend to hire or recruit based on who they know. Business owners usually, or hiring professionals, they usually tap into the pool that's very limited. And they could be either their friends, their family, or someone they know. Also, a lot of times they're using their gut feeling to bring people in. If they talk to someone and they think that, that's where unconscious biases come in too, right? That we talked about. If someone went to the same school as you, if they speak similar language as you, or if they belong to, and it's so natural, because we, on a psychological level, we all want to have that feeling of relatability. And once you see someone that looks a little bit like you, feels in a conversation that they sound like you, we use unconscious biases for that. So that would be one. The second one I would say is, whenever you're promoting from within your organization, people tend to promote the candidates, the team members that are high performers, instead of evaluating if they even have leadership potential. So just because someone is good at something that they're currently doing doesn't necessarily mean that they would be good at a higher level at the next. And the third challenge that I would say is, your candidate can have high potential. They can be high potential candidate, or they can be a high performer. But if they're not ready to take that role yet, to start leading people, then that's not your person. It's just like how we say in dating too. You can be the best perfect match for yourself, but if they're not ready to be in a relationship, or if they're not ready to take things to that next level, then that's not who you want.
Yeah, it's that desire, that want.
Yes.
So, I mean, you have been, unconscious bias, right? And we all can face that challenge. And you have mentioned a few different concepts, but it sounds like it comes down to three key areas. And can you share with us how they are all interconnected, that performance and potential and readiness that you have just discussed, how they are interrelated?
Sure. So if I could give you a formula, I would say, based on organizational psychology principles, performance, when multiplied by potential, is what gives you readiness. So in other words, readiness is a product of performance and potential. And the reason that I say it's a product and it's not a sum of performance and potential is because if you have zero performance and that gets multiplied by potential, then readiness is zero. So it's not that one of the factors can be null and you still get some results. So that's not the case. Performance usually, like if I were to define it, I would say performance is something that can help you see if someone is being successful or being effective in their current role. That usually only predicts success in similar types of positions that they would perform in. Now, potential is their future capacity to be effective in a more complex and a more challenging roles, because now the territory is different. The role is a little bit more complex than it was before. And potential also tells you that if they're actually willing, not only if they have an ability, but if they're even willing to learn from their previous experiences and apply that into their future complex work that they get to do. And readiness, being the product of performance and potential, readiness tells you if they have an ability, if they are willing, if they are ready, do they have the competencies, and also do they have the leadership traits that are required to perform that work.
So what I'm hearing you say is that there's performance component, that how are you performing in your role that you are playing today? And then you have that potential, like for the next role, right? So the growth path that you have, the next position that you have, the next role. So you're doing really well in the role that you are playing today, and you have potential for the next position. And now the readiness is that your willingness to get to that next role. Do you want it? Do you want that role, right? Are you ready to take that role? Are you ready to make that commitment to leverage your potential to perform now at the next level with the next role, right? Because today's potential will become tomorrow's performance. In that
yes, very well said. Yeah.
So proven value in the role that you're playing, and potential value for the next role. And your readiness to get there, and so that you can start building your commitment to build that new capability that will make you a high performer at that level, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the stakes can be so high, Sunny. If you think, like, there are organizations that I have done consulting for in the past, and I noticed that whenever they were hiring, like, let's say if it's a boys group, right? If they're only hiring people that they are, or promoting people that they were, that the manager was already friends with. And once they promoted that person, they realized that they didn't have any leadership potential. They were performing well at that level, but once they got to that level, they couldn't perform at the same level. So you only have two options at that point. You either let that person go, or you keep developing them and hoping that they would get to that point. Now, again, going back to, if they're not ready for it, if there's no willingness, if there's no ability to learn from their past experiences, then there's not much that you can do at that point. That's a selection issue. That's not necessarily a training or a development issue at that point. So the turnover, the churn rate, all of those, they start to get higher and you start to lose money, especially if you're a small organization and like 20 to 30 people. Losing one leader, that can impact so much the rest of the team. Now you've lost your high performer, you've lost a leader, and that's just a lot of money that's being wasted for one wrong decision.
Yeah, and I see this, Ammara, so many businesses making this mistake. I see it all around me. I have personally made a lot of mistakes there. Right. So in our journey to 600 plus people MSP now, that growth normally comes from your failures and learnings and optimizing, transforming yourself. And I see I mean, I want to understand this piece in a little bit deep at a deeper level, because there are so many my MSP friends that I talk to, I interact with. We just had a conference and a lot of conversations on talent strategies, because it is hard to find people. It's hard to retain good people. So this is a real issue, and I want to take a little bit extra time here to understand this piece, especially in the MSP world, Ammara. Normally, your biggest people department is technology department. So your L1 engineers, your L2 engineers, your L3 engineers, your tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 engineers. And common mistake that I see MSP leaders making is that they if there is a L2, L3 engineers, they are so good in their performance, and they see that, okay, person's willingness is there to get to the managerial level, now the leadership level. And it is common to see that a good tech may not mean good leader. And a lot of times people, because of the potential that they see, and I'm going to come back to leadership potential understanding as well, but let me just kind of share the common challenge in the MSP sector is that people or leader thinking that person is really good in technical performance, and that person is going to be a good leader, and they have willingness to do that. They want to do it, but they don't end up becoming great leaders. And that as a result of their leadership, a lot of other good techs leave that company. And now the owner or the leader whose responsibility is to make sure that the culture is calibrated amongst all the divisions have a problem to solve. Now, you have a really committed, dedicated, loyal person where they have paid their dues for many years, and because of that proven value, you gave them that new opportunity, and now they're failing. And to your point, now they have to make a decision. Either they need to manage them out, or they need to manage them to a different role. And that becomes this complex problem to solve. And it impacts that person's life, that morale, that really it's just painful. So can you help us understand, first of all, that what common mistakes that you have seen people making from the example that I shared, those type of mistakes, and what is your recommendation to kind of really prevent these type of mistakes?
Sure. So I think that's a very common challenge, especially in the IT industry that you see. I can only imagine like that investing so much money in sourcing, recruiting, hiring the best candidate, and you thought like that's a top talent. They're highly compensated, and you invest so many resources to now developing them. As an individual contributor, to your point, Sunny, they were fantastic. They have the right technical skill set. They knew exactly how to perform the technical side of their job. But I would say when their manager or their leaders are observing their performance, take a look at ILP, individual leadership potential, and some of the behaviors that I can give you. I think that's our next topic. But some of the behaviors that their manager or their leader can start observing early on in their performance. The technical side is taken care of, and they're perfect at it. But also try to see like how ambitious they are, how driven they are, how influential they are. Because at that level, it's not even about performing the technical side of their job. Sure, it's good to have that technical expertise and that background so you can be a good problem solver when it comes to that technical areas. But are they able to influence other people to do their job correctly? Are they able to influence other people in a way where they're making decisions, they're helping them make decisions, and people are in agreement with them, right? Like, are they leading them in a way where it's motivational, where it doesn't feel forceful, where it doesn't feel that that they're constantly being challenged by their team? If there's some friction like that, then again, it can be something that can be worked on, that can be developed. But if it's something that person is just, I think a lot of it goes to self-awareness too. If if you're missing emotional intelligence, if you're missing self-awareness, those are some of the things that I believe are hard to train people on, because you sometimes either have those or you don't. Sure, there are trainings, sure, there are tools and resources that can help with that. There are several different trainings and books on emotional intelligence. But again, that goes back to how much are you willing to do that and to make that change within yourself.
Yeah. So no, yeah. So there's so many trainings on EQ, but on some people just have that natural ability, and if you put them in the same training, they're already performing here. They're going to get there. And if someone is their factory installed EQ level is here,
it's going to take a lot out of them.
It's a long way to go. And while it's doable, but it's not very probably you're not putting that person.
It's going to drain so much of their energy too.
Yes.
If I get put in a situation where, like, I'm an introvert, people, if they ask me to party all day, all night long, I mean, if I have to do it, I'll do it, right? Like, so many of our weddings are like 4-day, 5-day events. I get exhausted at the end of the day because that's not who I am. That's not comes naturally to me. So sure, if I get put in a position like that, I will try my best to do it just because I want to do it. But at the same time, if that's not who I am, then that's not who I am.
Yeah. And so let me give you a scenario where from now reflecting on my leadership journey and challenges that I have faced. Because, the biggest division we have we have hundreds of technology professionals. And as a leader, I want to make sure I have a culture of promoting from within, taking people along with me. I want to make sure that people, where they have paid their dues, they have been there with us in good times and bad times. I give them opportunities to grow, create bigger future at IT by Design. And in that interest, we give the opportunity to a technology professional to lead people. And that's the intent behind it. That is what we really want to do, to take people, give them those career paths so that they can grow within the organization and they don't have to look for their career growth somewhere else. So that is the context. That is the why behind doing it. Now, from my experience, sometimes those situations were created where L2 engineer was given the technical lead role, where now they have a group of 10 to 15 other techs. And as a result, sometimes those techs leave because now you have this person. And that's one scenario. So if you stay with me. Now, the second scenario is that you bring in a people person from where they're not they don't have the technology background, they have people management background. Now, some of these engineers, they don't respect this person because he don't know anything, right? He cannot coach me, he cannot guide me because he doesn't know my kind of technology or my solution that I need to work every day. So these are the two scenarios. Here you have a technology background person leading people. He got respect from the technology point of view. That person, he's able to guide people to kind of with the projects and tickets. On the other side, you have a people person who is good in relationship building, the influence that you're talking about. But at the same time, that person is struggling to have that respect because that person is not able to guide his engineers on the technology side. So what's your advice to me that what do I do in these scenarios? Because I want both people to be, I want this position to be successful.
That's a great question. And I like how real that scenario is, because that is going to be some of the most common challenges that I think most organizations feel. Let me ask you a follow-up question, Sunny. In the first scenario, what's the percentage if you had to break down the job description of that technical team lead? How much technical work do they have to do, and how much leadership or people management would they have to do in their allocated job?
Yeah, I will say probably about 70-30. That 30% of the role will be technology guidance, technical guidance,
Okay.
technical support to those team members, and 70% is everything else from the
Okay.
client-facing side and their leadership side.
So I would say, and help me if I'm wrong. Technical skills are, and I understand, like, someone who has put in that time and commitment and has grown to that level where they have earned the respect of their colleagues because they have that technical expertise. But if you are bringing someone in who is great at helping people get from point A to point B, but is missing that technical knowledge, isn't that easier to train someone on, especially if that's 30% of the job component that they would be doing on a day-to-day basis, rather than the people side of it, the managing, the leading, not even managing, I want to say, more like leading their team.
Yeah, so I think it's very scenario based that. So the person who is non-technical, their job is 30% technical guidance, 70% is more of leading and managing and holding the team accountable. If that person's overall technical aptitude is there, that they have some kind of technology like degree, computer science or something, that they get the bigger picture, then I think they if their commitment is there to learn, they're open, they're committed, they want to do well with that 30%, of course, it's doable. It's doable and probably easier. But I mean, it can be a challenge as well,
For sure.
where these engineers, where they have many years of technology working experience, and they go to the person when that escalation happened, when they are not able to solve the problem. That's when they go to the subject matter expert who can guide them in the right direction. So their 30% needs, they got to be the master of the subject really good for that 30%.
I see the dilemma. Neither of those are perfect, right? But if I had to pick one, I would say I would go with someone who is more on the people side. If you are thinking of them for a leadership position, more on the people side. And even if there are 30% of technical expertise isn't all there, because it would be easier to train them on learning about the software, learning about the services, learning about the solution, learning about the challenges that are going to come across their way along with their technical work that they would be doing. That's where I think training can be very beneficial.
I think I'm in alignment overall with that advice, because if the 70% role is leadership and management and accountability, we in the US world we call it LMA seat, that you lead, you manage the day-to-day mechanical side of the job, and then you hold others accountable for their commitments. And if that 70% is all influence, which is leadership, the way I define it at the end of the day is influence, just one word to define
100%
influence, right? So if that is the 70%, then if you get a mindset where they are people-centric, they know how to influence people, and then they probably will be able to structure their division in a way that they can acquire an ability within the team to become that escalation point for 30%, while knowing how to position people and who to hire and who to give that opportunity type of thing, or how to structure things. And when the behaviors required for that 70% is ambition and influence, emotional intelligence, then it's easy to teach people skills, what we normally hear and what we kind of, so it's easier to teach skills than mindset. And it's hard to teach someone that mindset of influence and what it takes to really influence people. So I appreciate your advice, your wisdom there, and thank you. Do you want to? You were about to say something there.
No, I loved how you placed both of them in that that changing someone's mindset is difficult, is definitely more difficult than their skill set, especially if it's technical skill set. I 100% agree. If someone has that leadership, has that mindset of helping people, they would tap into their talent in the team. They would know who's good at what and delegating the work that way too.
Yeah. And I want to go deeper into leadership potential, because that's a common struggle, that how to identify that potential. How do you define that potential? What are the mindset and behaviors that you kind of need to look for to see that potential, right? So can you talk to me about what, in a small business environment again, and in the
Yes.
context of a leader of technology professionals, the example that I used, what's your advice to leaders to be able to define and then look for the potential talent, potential value?
So, especially for smaller organizations, I would say, because they don't necessarily have the money to buy assessments like that for thousands of dollars, right, to assess leadership potential. So some of the work that I did for smaller organizations at that level, where even if they don't buy assessments that they can use throughout their department, if they can draw a checklist, I would say some of the behaviors that I can provide, this is based on empirical research. This is based on combining Korn Ferry assessment, Harvard Business Review, any credible source that you can think of. Once, when I was looking at the data that they all had in common and some of the characteristics that they said, this is what you can observe in your candidate to see if they have leadership potential or not. The most common variable that we had was learning agility. And learning agility, what that is in very simpler terms is, Sunny, whenever someone goes through an experience, it's one thing, we all go through failures, we all go through experiences, but your ability to learn from those experiences and actually apply them into the future circumstance that you will have, connected back to, I remember that I went through this, and this is the lesson that I learned, and be able to apply that. That's learning agility. That was one factor that every credible source on leadership potential assessment said, that if someone shows high learning agility, that would be the biggest differentiator in your people. And some of the behavioral characteristics I can talk about with that are associated with high learning agility is, let's say if you have tasked whether it's a team lead or whether it's an individual contributor, if you're trying to see if they have high learning agility, I would say give them a problem and see if they are trying to seek alternatives, if they are challenging the status quo, if they are questioning things from a different perspective, if they look at others' views and see that how are other people approaching to a similar problem that they have. They are observant that way. If they are willing and asking to take on any challenging assignments, right? They are the ones who would be finding innovative ways to solve a problem. They would be asking a lot of, what if this? What if I were to do this? What if? So a lot of what if questions you would notice in their day-to-day behaviors. They would always be connecting choice and consequences, that if I were to do this, then this would be the consequence. That shows that mindset that they have thought things through. They are not impulsive that way. They would, if you put them in a situation that they have never been in before, they're able to navigate it. They're able to quickly adapt and adjust their behavior, adjust their mindset quickly.
I love that. Because what I'm hearing you say is all the things that entrepreneurs have to do. They need to figure things out, right? So they got to be in a territory where they just don't know because no one have been there, done that.
Yeah.
And that's the territory that you need to explore in terms of opportunities and avail those opportunities. Then you got to learn. You got to ask a lot of what if questions. You got to kind of rethink, reimagine, and believing in perspectives, believing in context and the relevancy from one point to another point type of stuff. So I call it the entrepreneurial leaders, where when you have those type of abilities, when you have those type of behaviors, that's your way of thinking. I love those people because that's entrepreneurship. That is where you're going to figure things out, right? And and then when you started with learning agility, I love that. I really, really love that because lifelong learning is really, really critical. It's really, really important, right? And because when you have learning agility, in my view, that's where you can say that, oh, this person has growth mindset because that person is open to ideas. That person is open to learn. It's not my way or the highway, or I know everything. They have that self-awareness that everyone have blind spots, and you can learn from others. You can transform yourself. And also, like when I shared this at Build It for the first time, and people were asking me, Sunny, that you came to this country in '93 to drive taxi, and now you are a tech entrepreneur. So what do you think contributed to that success, that taxi to tech entrepreneurship?
The journey that you had.
The journey that now I drive Tesla, so some people I was taking them around on a taxi to Tesla journey. Sunny, what is that learning? And I shared this one word with them, is that hunger to learn every day, learning from people around me that you mentioned, learning lessons from every single experience that you get, and it's more like in terms of experience learning, right? That you transform from your learning, what worked, what didn't work, what can I do better, and how can I learn to do better type of thing. So I'm like, lifelong learning, man. Lifelong learning took me from taxi to Tesla. And that is one thing that I think is the most critical piece, that I
100%.
know that it contributed to my success, and it can help a lot of other entrepreneurs, professionals, everyone on this earth. This earth will be a better place if we are all lifelong learners. And I love that when you're like, oh, lifelong learning agility, right?
And this might be a little extreme, but I always felt if I'm not learning, I'm already dead. Like what really differentiates if I stop growing, if I stop learning, like how do I know that I'm still alive? Biologically, sure, but what kind of a life is that? That's just my personal opinion.
Yeah. So I know you last time when we were prepping for this call, and you shared your journey as well from where you started to where you are right now. So the question that people asked me during our annual conference, if I ask you the same question, Ammara, that what is that one thing that contributed to your growth, your success? What is that?
I would say never give up. That like lifelong learning, that's a given, right? Like I feel like I'm not alive if I'm not learning. But if there was one thing that I would say, and I started from such a different, I think you and I talked about it. I started from such a different background. I came here to this country when I was 18. I was in the second year of medical school in Pakistan. And when I moved here, just a culture shock, just everything was so different, right? Coming from a different ethnicity and a religious background, just national origin, everything was so different. Yeah. And then starting over, completely changing my career. So there were a lot of struggles. But I think persistence and never wanting to give up, because every failure teaches you something. You either win or you learn. There is nothing in between.
Yeah. And what is that girl's name that was from, I think she was from Afghanistan. That girl who was
are you talking about Malala?
Yeah. So,
Malala, she's from Pakistan.
Okay. Yeah. So she's from Pakistan. Yeah.
She's also from
there
Pakistan.
There is some relevancy there. Yeah, I think that, if we probably ask her the same question, and I think it goes back to what you just said, is never give up.
Yeah. You either win or you learn. Those are the only two options.
Yeah. Yes. No, I love that. So it's that learning agility. With that never give up type of approach, or grit, right? So another way to probably say this is grit. Learning with grit can take you to kind of places that you probably did not
never
imagine. Yeah. Yeah. So coming back to our your model of performance multiplied by potential is equal to readiness. Right? It's not sum. It's
not a sum. It's a product.
It's a multiplier.
Because if one is missing, then if one is missing, then the end result is a 0. It's not. If it's a sum, then 1 plus 1 could be a 2, or a 0 plus 1 can be a 1. Yeah. But if one of them is not there, then the end result is a 0.
I love that. And is there anything else that you would like to share, something that I missed, that will help leaders cultivate their own talent in their small business environments, and they can give those, the meaningful work to people. They can set up people for success, because that's what normally an entrepreneur wants, right? But sometimes that unconscious bias to a lot of things can end up you end up making wrong decisions. Any other advice that you have for leaders to be successful with their talents, career development plans?
One, I would say, to your point, for unconscious biases, and that is so much, not just DEI, but so many different biases that we have. And they usually help us be successful, make quick and fast decisions, but they can also sometimes create blind spots for us. So to really educate ourselves and know where my own blind spots are, just be a little bit more self-aware. And secondly, I would say take the time to get to know your people, especially as a leader. Help them understand what they want, what motivates them, what gets them excited, where is it that they find joy, what is the purpose that they're trying to fulfill in their day-to-day, and help them get to that level, whether it's by creating that path, their career journey from where they start and where they go. Be observant. If on daily basis you're looking at things that they're not doing so well, provide feedback, provide consistent feedback. Don't wait for the end of the year performance reviews to dog them on some of the things that they didn't. Oh, you weren't a good team player, or you didn't do this right, and that's why I'm taking points off of your performance review, which is now going to affect your bonus or your increase in salary. Those things, they don't make you feel, your people feel valued. They don't make you feel that, they don't make them feel like you're investing, you're genuine, you have the best interests at heart for them. So just be genuine and take care of your people.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so with that, it's a little bit more creating that environment, right? Where I think it aligns with what you said earlier, inclusion, right? That people have that psychological safety, that they can speak straight in those in those meetings. That the way in buy-in is there with with the team, that they're able to speak straight. They feel that they are included in that decision making, critical projects that they are contributing to. They are co-created plans, and where they feel heard, right? So what's your advice for now, the last question there is diversity and inclusion. What is your advice to leaders? What can they do? So something that from the actionable items point of view, what can they do to get better with diversity and inclusion?
So I can tell you what to do, but also like there are a couple of things that I notice a lot that business owners or leaders are doing that they think sometimes work, but as we notice within our client base or our prospects or partners, it doesn't necessarily. A lot of times, like we think creating a checklist of this is what needs to happen for our diversity, equity, inclusion initiative. And once they start checking those boxes, it feels good because it feels like you've accomplished something. But it's not effective at all since it is a people strategy. It needs to be integrated into your overall business strategy and not just that I've done this, I did this, I asked someone where they come from, I have this quota of people that I've hired. Instead, look at the people the talent that you're bringing, right? And I'm not saying hire someone just because they represent a different group. It has to be merit-based. They have to be qualified. But from selection, from marketing, from the vendors that you work with, diversity goes into so many different areas of your business than just having a committee and letting them do whatever they want on their own. So try to see how you can integrate that as an overall business strategy from how you hire people all the way to when you do business with your clients. What is their strategy, right? So it has to be a part of all of that. And then understanding if your people feel included. Do they feel like they belong? Because sense of belongingness, that's where most of us miss the mark. Most of us don't tap into if the people in your team, if the people in your conference room, if they feel like they belong there. Because someone who has traveled to, as a leader of the organization or as a team lead, if they have traveled to Sweden, if they have traveled to Australia, and they come back and the meeting is being held within like financial analyst or a technical recruiter or someone at a front or an entry level role. Now, hearing your VP's experiences about how they're traveling internationally, the food that they got to enjoy, all of those things, like I can't imagine the impact that it would, how it would make others feel in that room, because not everyone is at the same level. The same thing goes with having a good understanding if you have Muslims in your team. Are they having Ramadan going on? Do they have special needs around their religious holidays? Or women in general, right? So there's a lot of different areas. So not just the biggest mistake I see is that just creating a checklist and calling it a day that this is all we needed and we're good to go.
Yeah. And so in terms of, overall, so the overall, there's just so much power in diversity. This country is built upon diversity. This country has done so well because of the power of diversity, and we can just take that success story and apply that in our companies, organizations, as leaders, to make sure that we are able to leverage all strengths that are available, all unique strengths, unique abilities that we have available around us because of that diversity around us. And so I love that. And thank you so much, Ammara. I truly, truly appreciate your time, your very, very valuable insights, and that you came here and shared with me and my community members, ITBD community members, and the rest of the world. I truly appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. I always enjoy our partnership, so it's totally my pleasure.
Thank you.
If you enjoyed this episode of Sunny's Silver Linings, please like, follow, and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on any future episodes. We'll see you next week.